We have all of this information. We know that we're
Right.
supposed to eat leafy greens. We know that we're supposed to move our body for 45 minutes a day. So what's stopping truly so many people if it's not lack of information? How do we start to get to that mindset and behavior change? That
Yeah.
was the golden nugget for me. And that really came back down to your foundations.
Hey, this is Rob Renee from the I Am Pain Free podcast, and I'm super excited today. We have an awesome guest with us. We have Laura Robichaux. How are you, Laura?
Great. How are you today, Rob?
I am so excited. This is going to be a fun conversation. I've loved our interaction so far, and hey, do we just be quiet and hit record and get this started because it's going to be a lot of fun. I love your energy. Why don't you tell my audience more about you and then how you became to doing what you're doing today?
Absolutely. Today, I am a certified health coach, and I have also recently picked up the title of wellness entrepreneur.
I like it.
Dabbling in lots of different things that help people live their best lives. But I have been a health coach for about a year and a half now. I graduated from the Institute of Integrated Nutrition. And that
Nice.
program is really, as much as it focuses on the health that we think of, so nutrition, exercise, things like that, this program was really appealing because it's truly whole life. So you're actually talking about 12 to 14 elements of life that the program calls your primary food. Secondary food is the food you eat. Primary food is really around this new concept of epigenetics, right? And how your lifestyle fuels what your genes will ultimately express. So that program was really intriguing to me because I understood that the physical health is only one piece of a much larger picture for each and every individual. And I felt a calling to look at whole people as opposed to simply the health elements. A little bit of how I got here. I actually spent 20 years in corporate marketing and advertising. So I
good.
Yeah, I worked for all of the major.
I was in sales, so you were my marketing arm. I love.
That's right. That's right. And I can't say that it wasn't amazing for the phase that I had it. I was working on some of the world's largest brands. I was creating all of the fun things that you see in the wild, like billboards, digital campaigns, TV advertisements. I really thrived being in a production, like on a TV commercial set. Just that energy and the community that you build in those environments. I really did love advertising, but advertising was a 60, 70 hour a week commitment. And that was great in my 20s and 30s when I was a little bit lost. But at some point, and I can actually get to this in just a second, but that lifestyle, that position, as I rose the ranks to VP and I was managing teams of 60 people, for example, like running national advertising for the Home Depot, my health ultimately started to fail, right?
Yeah.
So going back a few years before that, I grew up in a household like so many of us today that was filled with trauma. I had a father that lived a few states away. Ultimately, later we found out that he had severe substance abuse issues. And I lived with a mother that at the time in the 80s, when my custody battle happened, there was this kind of mantra that children should be with their mother. And the courts typically ruled in that favor.
Yeah,
my mother was later diagnosed with schizophrenia, which kind of can help paint a picture of what my childhood was like.
Wow. Yeah. Lots of strife.
Yes, very unpredictable. And I find that to be the thing that kind of I can time and time again go back to as an origin or a root to some of the distress that I've experienced as an adult. That unpredictability, that kind of gets picked up and manifested as people pleasing. So yeah, if you think about that childhood, I didn't really have a solid foundation of who I was, who I wanted to be, but I knew that I didn't want to be like my parents. I knew that was chaotic. Something in my belly told me that was not the way to a good and healthy life.
Right.
So out of desperation, I picked up society's playbook, right? Which is get into a good college, get a degree, get a really good job. I actually went on to get a master's degree, get a really good job, all in, of course, corporate marketing and advertising.
That's what the world told us to do, right? Literally.
Right.
Oh, hey, everybody expects me to do this. I guess I better do this.
Yeah. Right? It's if I'm not going to follow a unique roadmap to success and happiness, at least I know that I can follow a path that is fairly tried and true. My interest in now what I feel is my life's purpose, which is health coaching, actually started very young. And in college, I started out as a psych major. At the time, wow. I was very into true crime. Yeah, I'm a true 80s baby, a true millennial. And I thought that this is crazy, but I thought that I wanted to work with serial killers, right? They were just the most
Ted Bundy of the world, right? that was kind of our time, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I just wanted to get into their brains and understand human behavior and how people manifest into what they become.
That guy was so like normal, right? And then he was like, everybody was like so unguarded with him because it's like, yeah, he's a totally normal looking dude. And then just, wow, how evil can you be?
Totally. Like, and it was that whole string of uncertainty, right? That I was so fascinated by. Wow. How can you be one way and then behind closed doors be a completely different person? And that was something that I saw firsthand with my mother. So this obsession with understanding human behavior, and even more the shield of the human ego and what we let people see versus what we hold inside, became very intriguing. And so when I started undergrad, I started as a psych major, and my mother very quickly swooped in. She was not handling financials by any means, but she still had an influence on me. And she goes, look, Laura, I respect that you want to work with serial killers, but the reality is that might be 1 in a million people that actually get cool cases. So you're probably going to end up working with juvenile delinquents, right? Like you're going to end up being a product of the system. And I heard that at the time, and again, didn't have my own roadmap. So it was like, okay, that's probably true. Let's go with the thing that is society's plan. Right? So that looked like a business degree. So I went to a counselor and I was really grappling with this decision. And I will never forget, he said to me, Laura, marketing is just psychology for a profit.
Well, there you go. You're like,
and
hey,
I was like, okay.
I can do both.
I can get with that. So that whole consumer behavior obsession became very easy to monetize as an advertiser because our whole job, we had teams of people and now you can do it in ChatGPT in 15 seconds, which blows my mind. But we would spend months creating an ideal buyer persona for somebody that was likely to buy a Milwaukee drill at the Home Depot. And then we would craft the creative narrative to fuel the fire that audience needed. So I found my way in advertising. I loved it. I was good at it. I was able to come into a room with people significantly older than me, sitting on boards for these major brands. And I was able to own those rooms. And what happened is it starts inflating your ego a bit. And then you've got this kind of monster. And you're really being driven by success, by accolades, by external validations. And all of those things worked for a while. That stuff is all really yummy when you're in your 20s. And in continuing society's roadmap, I got married. And it was not necessarily, we are wonderful friends now. He is remarried with 2 babies, and we weren't right for each other at that time. And I became the breadwinner, which gave me more validation. And really, we just had the kindling for this fire that would eventually turn into a wildfire. Wow. So I'll try to speed it up. I know I'm a little.
No, you're doing great. This is fun.
Good. So in my early 20s, I would say around 33, my health really started to tank. I just turned 39. So it's been several years that I've been on this journey. And at first I turned to yoga. It was the thing that was closest in front of me. I didn't even start my yoga journey thinking that I needed major pivots spiritually, internally, right? I picked it up as an exercise. And that love for yoga sent me to India 3 times to really study the roots of the practice, right? Because in Western culture, we think of yoga as a singular, it's what's called the asana. And it's a mode of exercise. But in yoga, there are actually 8 limbs of yoga, with asana, the physical practice, only being one of them. And I wanted to go and understand the other 7 limbs, which are really, if you think about it, the yogic 10 commandments almost, right? So the way that you live, the things that you avoid, but the way that you bring your authentic self forward to support that yoga practice. The most fascinating thing that I learned, there were lots of things, but one of the most fascinating things that I learned is that the physical practice was actually only created to support sitting in meditation longer. So ancient practitioners found that they were too sedentary, and after a while they couldn't sit in meditation because their bodies were craving movement. So they inserted the exercises, the poses that you see today to do before they would sit in meditation. And that helped them sit in meditation longer. So really the asana is one of the newest, the movement is one of the newest pieces of the yoga story. So that was really my entry into health, and really paying attention to health. Again, I was in this failing marriage. I was in this really intense job that a lot of people depended on me for. I had teams of people. And though I loved that role, I really started self-abandoning. So I started changing everything around me. And this is the beginning of a very long 6-year journey to figure out that I was doing it wrong, right? Because at the end of the day, there are lots of different ways that we can get to health, but there are some ways that are just not the right way. And also at this time, I found myself really digging into escapism. So that looked like different things because, of course, I had a profile to maintain. But alcohol became a major picture or part of my story, other substances, overeating, just a lot of unhealthy things. So my weight skyrocketed up. My body started to become a physical representation of what I was putting into it. And that's mentally, emotionally, spiritually, as well as physically. So I decided to end my marriage. It was a 10-year relationship. That was step 1.
Right.
And I went on over the next 6 years, just to expedite the story a bit. This was also with the global pandemic in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But I moved 7 times in 6 years.
Oh my gosh. I hate moving.
And that was after being in a home for 10 years. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I changed agencies 5 times. I went back to grad school and started my education for a new master's degree in clinical psychology. I did all kinds of things. I also, throughout that 6 years, I very quickly after my marriage got into a relationship with someone that I thought was just the polar opposite of my ex-husband. And if you know anything about attachment styles, I'm a little bit anxious. He was a little bit avoidant. So you can imagine the chaos that ensued, not because he's a bad person or I'm a bad person, but because we just were not wired to think the same way. And we tried for 6 years. Ultimately, there was infidelity on his side, which crumbled me and almost made me want to save the relationship more, pulling into that, that unexpected kind of that craving that I had for just fixing things that were not mine to fix. So during this period, I would say honestly 2 years ago, so give it 4 years of just trying to pull myself through the mud emotionally,
Right.
plus
Right.
the
Right.
pandemic, isolation. I am a very social person. And there was a little bit of fear mongering around I don't think I would have quarantined for the full 9 months that we quarantined. But my partner at the time had severe asthma, and with the ventilators, it just wasn't worth the risk.
Yeah, they really snowed a lot of people with that isolation, didn't they? That was just so pathetic. What
They
what
did. I
did.
did.
The fear mongering was just ridiculous. Yeah.
Yes. And then the fear mongering became a tactic for my partner to practice his infidelity. So there was a little bit of a psychological mix up that happened there. But anyway, I got to a point where about 2 years ago, my health had such a decline. I remember the moment, and when you talk about, it's not just lack of nutrition, it's not just emotional dysregulation, but it's also lack of energy, fatigue. It's like the more I rested, the more I needed rest. And I could not, for the love of me, figure it out because I was trying to do all of these different things outside of me. So my health took a physical turn, and I'll never forget the day that I had to go and pitch a global hotel group. And we had a campaign, and really I was the only one that could pitch it. I knew it like the back of my hand. I was very close to the executive creative director and the lead strategist. And this was too big of a deal to have one of my team members go in and pitch. And I remember just being, I hope this isn't vulgar, but I remember being hovered over the toilet, just having panic attacks, throwing up, and my partner was trying to get me dressed just so that I could get up. He drove me to this presentation. I willed everything I had inside of me to make it through an hour-and-a-half presentation. We won the business on the spot, and I collapsed. I collapsed. I got home. I had a completely busted eye, a blood vessel in my eye. I could not hold down any food. I couldn't get out of bed. And my body was saying, we're done. We're done.
Yeah. Okay. We've been pretending for decades. It's time. It's time to start over.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So I spent a little bit more time in the agency. I took a health sabbatical for about 6 weeks. I came back, and as soon as I came back, I went back so refreshed. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna crush this. I just needed a break. No, about a week later, I was right back feeling the exact same way with that just dread to exist. Yeah. Brutal. So that ultimately was the end for me as it related to my previous life. I did not know what I was going to do, but I left the agency world, and that was really hard because I had so many people.
That's all you'd known for so long, right? That was your constant.
And I had so many people saying, what in the world are you going to do? This is your calling. You're so good at this. Right. I was like, but certainly I can be good at other things. So I left the relationship. And that was not easy. That was probably the hardest puzzle piece to all of this, is who we spend our time with becomes a reflection of what we can do in our lives. And I went back to India. This was my third trip to India. I actually had a girlfriend that was living there because 5 years earlier, she had been going through a big divorce, and I sent her to the small village in northern India called Rishikesh that I had gone and stayed in an ashram in and studied. And I was like, just go get your yoga teacher certification. Just go spend 6 weeks there, reset, come home. We'll figure it out. She never came back.
Wow.
So I had a place to stay in Rishikesh. So I went to Rishikesh, and I had no idea what I was going to do. And like divine intervention, I started to get advertisements for IIN's program. So I did that. And alongside that, I also recognized, not only through the process of the actual school work itself, but just I kept asking myself the question, like, what haven't you tried? What haven't you tried? And
Lots
the
of stuff,
only
probably.
thing,
I would say, yeah,
yeah,
that'd be a lot of things for me. Yeah.
yeah. The only thing that I hadn't tried is digging into my psychological foundations. At this time, I had lost myself so much, especially in the role that I was in advertising. My job was to absorb everybody else's thoughts, distill it down, and then represent it out. So even
Mhm.
in my job, I was really good at digesting information and making it friendly for the audience that I was in front of, but I wasn't
Right.
digesting any of my own opinions, right? A
Right.
marketer is the most, how do I want to say it? The most susceptible to marketing, right? Because
Yeah.
we get
Good
it.
point.
We know what goes into it. So if it's hitting
Right.
our feeds, I know somebody has constructed a strategy that says that's actually right for you.
Very good point.
Yeah, I started doing work on my values. And somebody would ask me something so simple. What's your favorite color? What kind of TV shows do you like? What do you like to eat? What's your favorite food? I had been so used to just picking up what everybody around me, and that goes all the way back to my mother. Whatever would keep the peace
Right.
in the house, I was
You
going to
wanted
want
to be
that.
that people pleaser, right? Like you mentioned. Yeah.
That's right. So when I found myself single and building a new career, I was like, I should probably know what my favorite color is at this point. So I started elementary school learning about me. I made myself a
Wow.
student of me. And ultimately, that and only that was the thing that helped me. I now call it unbinding burnout. That establishment of the sense of self allowed me to propel building everything else. Because when you
Nice.
don't know
Nice.
who you are, you're going to
Right.
default to other things, which then steals your authenticity. It steals your sense of self. And most importantly, it makes protecting your needs and asking for your needs to be met impossible because you don't know what they are.
You're just
Yes.
trying to please other people rather than get healthy yourself.
Right.
So let's talk about your education in the health journey. That sounds fascinating. It sounds like obviously nutrition is the key to a lot of people's health, but I love that you're talking about more than just that. And because I believe in mind, body, spirit connection is super important to people's health because it is more than just a physical body. You know, I come from a Christian perspective that it's God created all of us uniquely and that we have this body that is there, but we have a mind and we have a spirit, and we have this temple that He's given us that we need to take care of. And my gosh, we're really good at not taking care of that temple. I personally didn't for many years, like you didn't, and so it's really fun now to look back and say, oh my gosh, this is how you really take care of your body. And nutrition is almost the most important part of that puzzle, right? It's like incredibly important. So tell us a little bit more about your education and what you learned through that process.
Absolutely. So a lot of my formal education at IIN was, as I said, about physical health. But
Right.
even if I think what kept coming up for me was that those are you still have to get to the root cause of why you're making those decisions, right? So we're in the age of information, right? But what we've lost is our connection to our intuition, to the knowledge that's already inside of us. So I started with this phrase of modern modalities meet ancient wisdom. And at the end of the day, I decided, because when you become a health coach, they tell you niche down. So a lot of my classmates were going into dietary consulting, or they were becoming personal trainers or whatever. But for me, it really became interesting going back to that original inquiry that I had early in life, which was around mindset and behavior change. We have all of this information. We know that we're supposed to eat leafy greens. We know that we're supposed to move our body for 45 minutes a day. We know that we're supposed to put down the screen several hours before we do every night. There's no lack of information about how to live a healthy life. So what's stopping truly so many people if it's not lack of information?
Right.
And that is where I got really excited
I'll bet,
about
'cause
mindset and behavior change. Because there's no amount of coaching that I'm going to be able to do to tell you to eat more kale if your mindset is that it's gross and you refuse to actually buy it at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Or even bigger, you buy it at the grocery store, you
It
chop
sits
it
in
up
the
into
fridge.
a plate, and then you sit down and you're like, no way, I'm going to go get a burger. How do we start to get to that mindset and behavior change? That
Yeah.
was the golden nugget for me. And that really came back down to your foundations. So I created this program for myself first. I didn't even realize this was going to be my way in for coaching, but it really is based on 3 core pillars. And I'm currently creating a program for a clientele, specifically midlife aged women, but it really does extend to everybody else. Niches are just about marketing.
Yeah,
They're
you're
not about
niching down, right? I like it.
Yeah, exactly. So the first thing of the 3 prongs are bandwidth, battle card, and boundaries. So with bandwidth is really about understanding where you are today and where you want to go. So what is it that you have in your bandwidth already? And that goes across the board from how much time is in your schedule, how much emotional turmoil, change, or just emotional dysregulation or regulation can you withstand? Just really, what are those foundational elements of where you are today? Then we work together to add in a vision, your wellness vision for what the future can look like. So now all of a sudden we have a current foundation, an understanding of the current foundation, and we have a North Star. And then we start getting into the battle card, which is basically your toolkit. Right? So what are the resources that you already have? What are the truths about your foundation that may prevent you from making the changes that you want? How are you allocating that time, and can that be changed? In some cases, it can't. Kids. We have kids. There are a certain amount of hours of the day that nothing else is going to matter. That's okay. But we can still find ways to fill that cup up alongside the children. And guess what? Then we're modeling healthy behavior for the children anyway, right? So we get into that battle card of really equipping yourself with all of the resources that you need. And then the third step is boundaries. And there's this common misconception that boundaries are a negative thing or they're a punishment. But they're really not. If you think about the old origins of the word discipline, we think of it as a negative thing these days, right? You're disciplining your children, you're disciplining yourself, right? Through moderation and not allowing yourself certain things. But really, discipline is about showing up consistently, right? It's a positive thing. Discipline and boundaries go hand in hand. If you're going to show up consistently for yourself, you have to protect that space. And so boundaries are not about keeping people out, but they're about keeping your promises to yourself so that you can pour out in a better way, not from this chaotic, sporadic kind of, oh, you need something, so let me give up my own needs to give it to you. That's a breeding ground for resentment. But really just making sure that you can maintain the discipline, the positive discipline for yourself in that little container. Because another harsh truth that I had to come to terms with is nobody's coming to save you. And that one's hard.
Yeah, I'll bet, especially with the way you grew up, right? You had your dad wasn't there and your mother was still different, right? And that you never had that foundation. And now you're like, so you had to be that person that was always consistent. And now it's like, now you've got to help people understand that they can have a foundation. That foundation can be healthy through your 3 Bs, which is real exciting. One of the things I like to talk about is fatigue. How do you help people like manage fatigue through your program?
Yeah. So again, that goes back to understanding the fundamentals of who you are and what you need. So I was in a position where it didn't matter if I slept 20 hours a day. I could continue sleeping. I could not get my body up right?
You're just so exhausted.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people struggle with not being able to get that good sleep, but just as dangerous is too little sleep. Too much sleep is also very dangerous, right? But the fatigue was chronic. It didn't matter how much sleep I was getting. It didn't even matter how quality the sleep was. I just was drained. Yeah. And if you think about all of the things that we carry around with us, especially when we're operating from somebody else's playbook or from a place of dysregulation, and we're actually always feeling like we're doing things for other people, right? Which is very common in the community that I work with, which is midlife women. There's this understanding that mothers don't have time for themselves, right? Because they're just
taking care of everybody else, right?
That's right. How could you not have fatigue when you're operating from that as a baseline? And so when you start to do the work of going inward, and listen, 2% of the population, specifically the American population, 2% is going to do this internal work. The other 98% is going to continue to operate from what they think the right thing is to do. And they think it's the right thing to do because that is what society has ingrained time and time again, who we should be, why we should be that way, and what we'll get in return for it. And it typically looks like a monetary return. But there are a lot of things in life that have nothing to do with money that are the actual energy generators. Simple as in the morning before you pick up your phone, because that is you jumping right into the external validation world. Right. Sit outside with your cup of coffee and have some sunlight. That is literally the equivalent of charging a battery, right? We run off of sunlight, but it's about taking the time and the space again to understand who you are, what you need, how you can protect it. And only then from there can you start to make the behavior change because you've established the mindset. Does that make sense? Yeah,
I love it. And I think I love that early morning ritual as well, because it's like literally that first 45 minutes is called blue light, and it's so healthy for you. And it just recharges your entire body for free. Right. So it's things that people don't understand and how important that is. So I love to instill that in people, that first 45 minutes of the day, go get in the sun, get your body in the sun, get your face in the sun. And it just literally recharges your body.
But I'm also a firm believer that those things only work if you lean into them.
Right.
If you go outside and you're sitting in the sun and you're on your device and, you're on TikTok, I truly believe that you don't absorb the same health benefits.
Right.
There's that connectedness of your mind, body, spirit that you were also mentioning earlier. And it's, if you don't let those three play together sometimes, how can they ever form a connection?
Yeah, very true. I love it. So the fatigue thing, you help people understand like who they are, right? And then you walk them through techniques to help them start learning that they should have the different values and the world's teaching them, and that they can start becoming healthy. Is that how you did it yourself at the times when you were sleeping that long? How long did it take you to get to the point where you were out of that fatigue?
Yeah. And it still comes back sometimes, right? None of us are even masters of our own trade. There are definitely still those nights where I'm like, oh, just one more episode of this Netflix show. And then the next day I'm regretting it. But it took me quite some time because I continued to try to do it other ways.
Now you have a good tool set, right? That you've learned and you're teaching other people of how to get through it. So
that's right.
I love that you have that experience, and then you can at least portray that to the people that you're coaching to help them through those issues, so they can hopefully shrink that time frame down dramatically by learning from you. That's what I love about health coaches, and you've already gone through the struggle, so you can help other people avoid those same issues and problems.
That's right. And you were mentioning just individuality and how everyone is so unique. In health coaching, we call that bio-individuality. And so another part of that and why it's not so easy to be like, this is how I battled my fatigue, is because I truly believe that whatever works for one person may not translate for another. So that's why the work of going back to the values, the resources, the strengths that you have, the desires, all of that is so important, because then we build a custom plan based off of how you need to operate to battle your fatigue. So it is very hyper customized, but it is like that by design. And it's actually something that as a health coach, I struggle to market, because it's hard to tell a story that we're going to craft a custom solution for you. But once you're in the work, it makes so much more sense, because I'm not saying to you, drink 100 ounces of water, go to sleep by 9 p.m. I actually, with my Aura Ring, have been religious about trying to go to bed at 10 p.m. I found out that with my chronotype, I'm actually getting the deepest rest from 11:30 to 7:30. So I've been having to force myself to stay awake to get into that rhythm, and it has skyrocketed my
that's awesome.
productivity. But I was listening to the masses saying, be in bed, lights off, screens off, 9:30, asleep by 10. And then I was sitting there for 3 hours just thinking about all these ideas and not getting up because I didn't want to get on a computer and disrupt those cycles. So it is truly just about getting deep with yourself. And it sounds like it's major work, but it's work that you can do sporadically, right? You put a question on a sticky note on your mirror, and every morning while you're brushing your teeth, you answer the question for that day. And then you see how that question's answer evolves over the week for you. You have to sit with these things. Change takes time. And that's why so many people are like, okay, I'm going to eat leafy greens and proteins, and I'm going to work out 4 days a week, and I'm going to drink 100 ounces of water, and I'm going to go to bed by 10 a.m. And then 2 weeks later, they're completely burnt out on their own health and wellness program, because they're not really understanding what their end game is.
They're just trying to work on what the world tells them to do rather than the whole mind, body, spirit connection thing we discussed, because it is so much more than just the body, right? It's like you need to have a goal, right? And you need to have a plan of where you're headed. And that's why I like what your plan is, because you're helping people understand who they are, right? And then what motivates them specifically, and because everybody's different, so it's going to be different. And then you help develop a plan that's specific to them on how they can thrive. Well, I love what you're doing. It's exciting.
Thank you. And look, it's an easy thing to resist. I tried literally everything to avoid doing this work. But once you just assign it to yourself, the insights, I see people in 6 weeks just break open. And it's not necessarily because of my program. That's just a roadmap, right? It's the fact that once insights start, you almost can't stop them. Once you see, you can't unsee. And that is gold. I have goosebumps right now. And at the end of my program, clients come to me and they're like, you single-handedly changed my life. And I'm like, no.
You did.
You single-handedly changed your life. Because this work, it doesn't have to be time intensive, but it's certainly not easy. And the real reality is that my sickness, my physical sickness, actually, and this is why I also try to correct that burnout is not just about a job. Burnout is a whole life experience. And in understanding that, I resisted and resisted. People really just are able to completely unlock themselves when they start to recognize that it's not that they aren't doing the right things at the right time. It's just that they don't understand what they're mapping to. And it takes a very specific kind of mirror and dedication and mindset to be able to really uncover the truth. My truth was that I was doing all of this because I was still struggling under the layers of success and ego and doing the right things with childhood trauma.
Right.
And so in partnership with my program, but also in partnership with a therapist, because I truly believe that everybody should be in therapy because the world is just hard to navigate right now. And it's much harder if you do it alone. That was the thing that I needed to work through. But without going deep inside myself, I never would have identified that. And
that's fascinating. Yeah, that's so exciting. So what are your plans for the next few years? What are your goals?
My goals, yes. So I want to help as many people as possible because now that, like I said, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So to me now, even though it took me decades to get to this point, this framework is just almost a no-brainer. It's, I could have saved so much distress if I just would have had this map. So the more that I can spread this framework of it doesn't have to be hard, it just has to be honest and you have to commit yourself to it.
Right.
The more I just feel like people are going to come alive. They're just going to start asking for what they need and they're going to defend themselves to make sure that they can maintain it. And it breaks my heart every time I hear somebody tell me that there's no way out, that they have no choice, that they're stuck.
Yeah, that's frustrating. Yeah.
Because I've been there and I know what that feels like, but you're not.
Yeah, and look at you. You did an amazing job of transforming from being, like you said, being over the toilet, puking, and just being 100% done to transforming your entire life. And now you're not only helped yourself, but now you have a passion to help others, which I love that because I think that's my mission too, is to get out and help people with their faith and their health. And if I can help them with their health, I think I can talk to them about their faith, it can open up another unlocking. And so I love that you have that passion to help others, which I commend you for. It's exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, I almost didn't make it. I'll be honest. My mental health got to such a place that I didn't want to live anymore. And I talk about that on my Instagram at By Way of Gray.
Yeah, so that's a great segue. How do people get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my company is called By Way of Gray. And honestly, as this journey has hinted, these insights came in small bits to me over the years. And it wasn't until I started collecting them all in one basket that I was like, oh, okay, I know what to do. So about 12 years ago, I was sitting on the sofa at Thanksgiving at my father's house in New Orleans. And I was sitting next to my ex-husband, and he had said something that had just put me over the edge, put me over the top, as holidays do. And I was fussing myself and I was going, it's Thanksgiving. Can you just not be such a miserable person just for one day? And I was like, Laura, you just need to be better at living by way of gray. Get out of the black and white, get into the messy middle, and roll with the punches. And so I bought that URL. I was like, ooh, by way of gray, there's something to that, but I don't know what it is yet.
Right.
And I bought the URL and I sat on it for another 10 years. And when I entered health coaching in school, I was like, oh, this is it. This is it. This is my use for By Way of Gray. So bywayofgray.com is my website. My Instagram is at By Way of Gray. And I would absolutely love to talk to anybody, whether we work together or you just mine insights. I am not precious. I am just on a mission to help people understand that they're not alone. They're not stuck. And the reality is, in today's modern society, no one is a product of their circumstance.
Awesome. That's fantastic. I'm so excited that you were able to be on the show, and I'm praying that we can just amplify your voice and that people can find you, but by the way of grace, which is by way of gray, which I love a lot, which is so exciting. We'll make sure we have the links to your website as well as your social media accounts so people can find you. Laura, I really appreciate you being on the show.
This has been amazing. You are so kind and just so welcoming, and it's such a pleasure to talk to you. And I hope that somebody out there, even if it's just one person, gets
Yeah.
an idea from our conversation.
Yes, that's fantastic. Let's just transform people's lives one person at a time, right?
Let's do it.
All right. God bless you. Thank you so much for being on the I Am Pain Free podcast.
Thank you, Rob. Have a
All
great day.
You too. Goodbye.
Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dakota Freeman, and I am so excited to introduce you to the incredible benefits of Exodus and the molecular hydrogen generating blend. Imagine a super antioxidant that can cross the blood-brain barrier and the gut barrier, delivering its powerful benefits directly into our cells. That's the power of molecular hydrogen. It promotes a healthy inflammatory response while helping athletes perform at their very best and helping everyone reduce oxidative stress by neutralizing harmful free radicals in our body. Combined with the biblical ingredients in Exodus, you get a transformative health supplement. Feel the immediate effects and experience vibrant health today. Are you ready to transform your life? Try Exodus today.